My name is Kirby, and this is Knife Fork Book. What a pleasure to have you join us tonight for the Toronto launch of Neil SURKAN's Unbecoming. Just a few notes. I'd like to do a land acknowledgement from where we are here in Toronto. We acknowledge the land we're meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nation, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and I'm very grateful for our sharing and use of this land. Lots of things are going on at Knife Fork Book. Clara was just asking how's the new shops. We're open at both our KFB East at the Great Escape Bookstore, which is over on 957 Kingston Road. It's a wonderful old bookshop, and we take a back nook in the back corner of that shop. It's chock full of goodness, and Catch is there 10 to 2 from Tuesdays to Saturday. I'm going to be there on December 18th, the entire day, to meet people and give you some holiday suggestions. Also, our KFB West outlet is at Capital Expresso in Parkdale. That's at 1349 Queen Street West. Similar hours. I'm going to be there on Sunday the 19th before the holidays to greet and have some time for people to meet and greet with me that day as well. Also, you can find our own Knife Fork Book products, our titles at knifeforkbook.shop. And as you found out this evening, coming in tonight at knifeforkbook.com, it'll bring you updates about everything that's occurring at Knife Fork Book. We encourage you to support us by becoming a Patreon or a subscriber. There's information again at our website at knifeforkbook.com. I just want to alert you to a couple of new titles. Our newest is Jennifer Lovegrove's The Tinder Sonnets. I cannot recommend this highly enough, especially as a stocking stuffer that would go really nicely with the purple love chunk. And on December 21st, which is the solstice, we have our annual KFB Holiday Queer. And this year, we're going to be celebrating the launch of Not Your Best 2, which is the queer as fuck issue that I edited that just came out this fall. It's chock full of, it's a whole lot of fun, including visual work by Philip Hare, who did the cover of Poetry is Queer, some wonderful photographic work by Don Pyle, artwork by Angie V. Quick, and Brian Dodora, and some extraordinary poetry. I couldn't be prouder of an issue, and we're going to be celebrating this on the solstice here online at KFB. But tonight, I would like to say three of my nearest and dearest. These are poets that I share closeness with and have published. KLARA is actually, we have a chapter coming out of KLARA's with Katie Salmon in the new year called Skin and Meet Sky. We published Dale's Sons, as well as we're doing a pamphlet of his this coming year called Blur. Of course, we did Neil SURKAN's Their Queer Tenderness. And tonight is the launch of Neil SURKAN's sophomore effort, Unbecoming, put out by McGill Queen University Press. It's a stunning achievement. I can't recommend it highly enough. So what a pleasure to have an opportunity to celebrate with this Toronto launch tonight, and how delightful also for Clara Duplessis and Dale Martin Smith to guest and help celebrate the night. We're going to start with Clara's reading. Clara is a poet based out of Montreal. She's a critic, literary curator. Her debut collection of multilingual long poems, Eka, won the 2019 Pat Lowther Memorial Award and was shortlisted for the Gerald Lampert Memorial Award and has garnered much critical acclaim. She lives in Montreal and Cape Town. Of course, I know you're all familiar with her newest book, Hell, Flesh, Light, which was also a KFB Selects earlier this past year. Please join me in welcoming KLARA du Plessis.
Thanks, Kirby, for the introduction and for just being the heart of poetry in, Toronto, but also really everywhere, because, yeah, I dream of Knife Work Book and visiting again when travel allows. And it's really great seeing so many friendly faces in the Zoom grid there. And yeah, I am really happy to be opening tonight for Neil's collection, which I haven't seen in person yet, but we got a preview on Zoom a few minutes ago, and it looks beautiful. And yeah, looking forward to that, and just very happy to be sharing in this moment. A launch event is always kind of momentous, and so much work goes into years of work and infrastructure go into a moment of a launch, right? So yeah, here to support that happiness and celebration and excitement. I'm going to be reading from Hell, Light, Flesh, keeping it on the shorter side, I think. I've kind of chosen two sections to read from, and for those of you who might not have read it, it's a book that among various themes, one of the main narrative elements of the book is this kind of physical confrontation, violent physical confrontation between a father figure whose name is Maria and a son. And so the sections that I chose to read, on the one hand, is more on the father's side, and on the other hand is more on the son's side. And in terms of content warnings or things, I don't think I'm reading a section that's in any way, I mean, it's kind of a negative section, but it's, There's a kind of darkness that doesn't exist because of the absence of light, but due to its displacement, that light being cast elsewhere. Imagine different dark spaces, cupboards and drawers and nighttime, the inner body, cavities and orifices, a great big galactic sphincter. When the inside's invoked, there's an immediate darkness. Obviously, a room can be bright, but only because the outside enters. The mythological significance of the past, the father speaking through the lip of the present, unquestioned voiceover, a soft godliness, authority which in its eternal quality lacks contemporaneity, a nowness that has come undone. To bequeath tradition onto kindness is a weird warping, a restructured defiance. Authority read in gesture, stance, tone, expectation, and stock phraseology. Rough voice preclusion, remedy of looking down, manipulating stature to advantage, stronger physique, deeper speech. Being nailed into a trite economy, expressions of dullness, culpability logic, mimicking the lineage of parental antecedents. Fall back in the mottled light, predefining every word with experience. Recycling script, gesture, intuition, saying what's expected to be said. This intimidation called love. funneling text down the daddy throat, great big voice box of letters, divine intervention of the larynx, like father, like son, and other religious paraphernalia. I always time myself quite religiously before doing an event. And then I realized that I don't really count the prefatory remarks. And then while I'm reading, I'm like, no, I need to cut this down by half. So right now I'm cutting it down by half. And I'm going to jump to the second section. You know, I'm here to listen to Dale and Neil. The pride of living violence, its active living quality, but also living it, crossing experience to a sense of dignity. This hit me and I am okay. I am strong, my muscles are lean. I am tall. I recognize myself. I am beautiful in the eyes. I am cryptic in desires that still need articulation. I am evidence of myself. I am not denied. I am worthy of everything. I am okay. I am loved. I am okay. I am peripheral, but I will be central, surrounded, less hemmed in. I am brave, business as usual. I am beginning to be, or I am ending and beginning to be on repeat. I envy age and wait for masculinity like a prize, a rite of passage, a publicity stunt, a tentacular observance, an eyeing. I situate myself. I resemble myself. I shake off tenderness to hum the rocking tune with heartbeat rhythm. I fondle my body. I am my body. I am hurtled through violence. I partake in a tradition of violence. I think of the violence done to my brother. I think of the violence done to my friends, to my best friend, of the violence done to my cousins, to my classmates, to the boy next door. I think of the violence done to my father, to his father. I think of the violence I will do to my son, and it becomes a tenderness, a passing on, hissing through my teeth. This patriarchy, which is my body. I feel myself living. I protract living into thinking. I substitute living with thinking. I think I live to think. I am the only figure of speech that matters, transubstantiated, lean teenage. I am okay. I present myself to myself. I profess intentions. I command this violence that is a mark, a pride possession, pride and honor and participatory. I corroborate the feedback of my existence, the buzz, the noise, the bees, sweet and stinging. I satiate the lingering simper that rises through monologue to an urge, an administration of moving forward. Thank you.
You've just reminded me how necessary it is for me to revisit your collection. So moving. Thank you so much, Clara. And I appreciate the pause. Thank you. Dale Martin Smith is a poet and literary scholar. Born in Dallas, Texas, he earned his BA, PhD in English from the University of Texas, and MA in Poetics from the New College of California. He's the author of the full-length poetry collections, Slow Poetry in America, Black Stone, an American Rambler. Smith's scholarly contributions include Poets Beyond the Barricade, Rhetoric, Citizenship, and Dissent after 1960, and 2 edited editions, an open map, The Correspondence of Robert Duncan and Charles Olson, and Imagining Persons, Robert Duncan's lectures on Charles Olson. Both came out in 2017 and are now in paperback. His essays and poetry have appeared in Poetry, The Walrus, LA Review, Boston Review, Lambda Literary. With Wah Win, he edited Skanky Possum, a literary zine and book imprint from 1998 to 2004. He currently is at the Faculty of English at Ryerson University. His newest is the sensational Flying Red Horse from Talon Books. Please join me in a warm welcome for Dale Martin Smith.
Yeah, thanks, Kirby. That's very sweet, and it's great to hear you read, Clara, and I look forward to hearing you, Neil. Really happy to be here tonight to celebrate Neil's new book and to share some of the work with you. Just going to read a little bit from, there's an opening essay in the book that Kirby showed you. It's titled Flying Red Horse also, and I'm just going to read a bit from that. Again, a screen, an interface, the light and whiteness, the page. I grew up in Dallas, Texas, on the edge of a previously rural sensibility. Since 1934, a red horse owned by an oil company flew over the city. My father, born 1937, adjacent to a small East Texas town, lived the first 10 years of his life without electricity. In the city, where so many young, white, previously rural men migrated after the twin assaults of the Great Depression and the Second World War, new divisions were asserted by way of a welcome increase of prosperity. Traces of the emotional stress and exhilaration of that period can be heard in Sam Phillips' Sun Records recordings from Memphis, made between 1953 and 1956. Together, Elvis and his audience staged a fantasy. Grail Marcus evokes how, night after night, that pact served to replace the world. And this is Grail Marcus. The version of the American dream that is Elvis's performance is blown up again and again to contain more history, more people, more music, more hopes. The air gets thin, but the bubble does not burst, nor will it ever. This is America when it has outstripped itself in all of its extravagance, and its emptiness is Elvis's ultimate throwaway. When I was in 3rd grade, I became obsessed with country music. I loved the drama, though I could not understand it all. Certainly, the lust and refusal in the music could not fully arrive in me then. But there was a sense of longing I felt in those songs, where there existed a yearning for home. The whining of the pedal steel guitar and the rhythmic tonalities of acoustic and electric instruments drew me intimately into relations inside and beyond the limitations of my body. This book, particularly this opening essay, is about a number of things, partially the relationship of being having grown up in Texas in the US South and then moving to Canada. It evokes some of the work of William Faulkner, but mostly it's this focus on music, lyric, and Charlie Pride is about to find out, the great musician. Charlie Pride, who died of COVID-19 on December 12, 2020, is one of only 2 Black country musicians inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame. Country music, or country blues, was played before the war by mixed race performers. Nashville music after 1945 became increasingly a white music. Pride's complex immersion into that scene after a notable baseball career in the 1950s Negro American League is remarkable. I was not sure what it meant racially, socially in 1977 Dallas, Texas, but I felt a distinction, a shift of order, and a welcoming uplift of emotional charge in Pride's voice. I responded to a sound and a feeling, and to an image. I saw a Black man in blue jeans on the cover of an album. What did it mean to me? How do sound and image and feeling cohere? A Black man's body on the stage and lights contrasted to my small pale blonde occupation of space in the dark lit mezzanine of a concert arena. Pride's physical presence in those lights magnified an image of power challenging what I experienced as self-control and domination. My father's bodily claims through white paternalistic acts of generosity or occasions of anger radically opposed pride's expressive range, where tenderness, sympathy, humor, and self-recognition conveyed hope and urgency. His witness to the world in the communal partition of song drew on intensities of feeling that went beyond those I derived through my family. I exposed myself gratefully to his act, as real as life itself. Pride's skin and his physical features were different from mine and my father's, but his voice was achingly familiar. It transferred power across bodies, racially complicit in messages of alterity's pleasure. Distance of bodies collapse in an imaginary where voice, lyric, sound, light played in the kinetic urgency of my experience. The communication of power forms a central terminus by which other feelings and imaginings find shape and possession. To make music by hand rather than to receive it in slick packaging engaged a whole part of my communicative life and song. Lyric arrived in me as I looked through the blankness, the white enmeshed codes of communal time. The sexually transgressive figure of the artist, of white men and women, and Black men and women readied my attention to possibilities of being, meaning, being nowness. I tell you these things because they compose a personal mythology, and through writing, I struggle to ascertain its meaning. I write them to address the blankness, the white strain of the too familiar residing in so many things now, separated by habits of thought, by surveillance infrastructures, by images and text detached from stories. How ghosts form and deform, persisting in advance of a feeling. Charlie Pride reminds me to listen above and below the vacancy of surface. And this is a lyric from Charlie Pride. Well, people may try to guess the secret of a happiness that some of them never learn. It's a simple thing. And I'll just end with one small poem. It's called Everyday You. Every day you look for surprise in the ordinary routine of now. An awakening through the noise shows what's light and ready to be known, your own ongoing ground. And on you return like a musical pattern, on to the sound, on in the round of days to play in, as if a child wilded the lost and the found, the weird and the blatant beat. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Dale. There is a hearth this evening. The flames are very bright. I'm always grateful to hear your voices. Neil SURKAN, I'm not even certain how we met, but I do remember you bouncing up the steps of KFB when we were launching On High. And what a miraculous night that was. I'll never forget. And your new book, Unbecoming, it was wonderful to have an advanced reading of it. I'm so grateful. And you certainly know how to pick your openers tonight. So you're adequately warmed up, my love. What is the minimum required? Reading Neil SURKAN, minimum maximizes the elegant, sparing truth in a poetics where each line is drawn to incise, open, lay things bare. He wonders the driving force of SURKAN's sophomore effort. Poetry has such a wonderful smell, is such a wonderful smell. At best, we feel exhilarated by our rootedness, deepened as questions good questions stream in floods of words that, like fish scales on furniture, cling for a while and shine the dull way dried tears shine. Here, the promise of SURKAN's debut bursts forth. Wonder becomes wondrous. The still symmetry continues, and baby, the infinities shine bright. Why are you so invested in keeping us alive? This collection insists we're still breathing. There's a beat. Unbecoming is nothing less than brilliant. What a pleasure. Please join me in welcoming Neil SURKAN.
Oh my God, fogging up my glasses already. God, like, thanks, Kirby. That's a really, really generous intro. That's for sure. Really appreciate it. Clara and Dale, thank you so much for reading tonight. I'm very bashful to read after you just because I appreciate your work so much. So I kind of realized this the first time I got to launch a book, that like the best part of doing readings is that chance to listen actively and deeply to other writers. And honestly, it took a while to kind of be able to get my mind feeling safe to be in that space, because reading's also scary. And tonight was one of those ones where just both those readings were just so generous. So thanks for doing them. I'm really glad you're here. And Kirby, I just want to say thanks for your mentorship and friendship. And often when Kirby and I FaceTime, one of us at the end is like, the cup is fuller. And that's a good kind of marker for friendship. Oh, and hi, Eddie. This is Eddie. He's eating burgers or pizza right now, just in case something colossal happens in the house while I'm reading. So grateful you're here too. This is a book about kind of awkward transformations. Like the way I've phrased it in the past is that it's like the unbecoming, as in like the kind of the awkward or potentially ugly act of unbecoming or transforming towards something new in a fledgling kind of fashion. It was written mostly in Treaty 7 territory, but now the fam has moved. So I just want to begin by acknowledging that I'm reading in Nanaimo, on unceded territory of the Coast Salish people. And I want to especially thank this Nanaimo, on whose traditional lands I'm living, working, parenting, and creating. So thanks for hearing me from here. This book has an epigraph from Jack Gilbert. The painful love of being permanently unhoused. Bewilderment does not become a consumer. My son, strapped to my chest, will not remember this grocery run, nor tasting this Chilean peach I'm thumbing for softness. So much displaces in the realms of produce and memory. We feel and feel till someone has to care for us. I hope he will visit. We pass the milk, the sweets, the butcher. All the while he sleeps, which strangers love, stopping to simper. I wonder if their snuffles, their pinching of wrappers, filter through his dreams, his separate dark, those ears that match my brother's. Subtler, subtler, beat our hearts down aisles of cluttered clits. This poem, or this book, kind of ends with with a kind of one long poem, and it begins with another that I always just like to say before reading, that I'm so grateful to Larissa Live for suggesting that I invert them. And there was almost a temptation to bury this poem in the collection in some ways, have it be like such a place of arrival that like a gauntlet had to be passed through to get there. And Larissa was the one to be like, nope, right up front. So I'm going to read you a few sections of it. It's called The Minimum, and it came out of conversations with the artist and physician Cam Matamoros, who asked, like, how much do you need before a painting is a landscape? Like, what is the minimum you can add to a canvas before someone is like, landscape? And I kind of wondered about inheritance along those lines, or sketches of family. So it's an elegy, in part at least. The minimum. What is the minimum required to convey a landscape, I wonder, as my father and I drive from Saskatoon to PA, and all that divides land from sky is a faint crease at road's end. Dear eyes flare, but otherwise the snow spans evenly on all sides, and it's hard to say how close we are to anything but one another. And so, being not close, I fix on lone farmhouses' slight windows, bending off the dusk like pilot lights. This is where my father's family restarted, 40 below on a crude plot, etc. All the pioneer non-apologies, neo-peasantry, not even bootstraps to pull, become an ethics of work, survivor's pride, leisure earned, and never one to whine, feelings tucked like perch under ice, turned isolation in old age, brute stubbornness, a frail rage. He refuses to eat, Dad says. I nod and watch the mill slide past, frost glinting on fresh stacked timber. There's no time, my gowned grandfather grumps. You must get to work. His blood-logged legs make the hospital bed look heaped with twin barrows. Having decided to die, he sips less Ovaltine than would sustain a baby, drains his body gradually, a gravity flow grain elevator. Yet still he skeptically recounts my hands when we play cribbage on his lap, probes about my degree, briskly and bewilderingly concrete, as if his mind, crisp as the sifting air outside, were simply poised to vault, like a chill, into new limbs, keep on without interruption. Hence the air in here, forced and stuffy as, again and again, my father asks if he has any pain, and my uncles sprinkle well wishes from church and bridge club, till he practically sparkles with hard granules of sugar that begin to burn like salt on ice when, time to leave, he won't return love to any of us. And these are some sections from near the end. This is kind of a weird thing to ask in the middle of a long poem, but can you hear me? Okay, it's always this fear of looking up and then being like, oh, just read that alone, more alone. So these are the last two sections of the poem. What is the minimum required to convey shifted ground, I wonder, as the prop plane shrugs from a spray of de-icer? My father sits 2 rows away. At the next terminal, we separate completely with predictable words, but I can feel his generous fragility, which I mirror, being his son, though it doubles as comfort. I almost pat his back with a thud. Instead, the wound breathes. We breathe the forced air, split into the sky. When I think of my grandfather on that shabby gurney, I don't picture his face. I only see my dad and his 4 brothers thwarted by permafrost they're trying to douse for water, resorting to hurling love on the stubbled, frozen earth. Then I think of that transfer when my father wept on me. And this is the last section. The morning my son is born, dawn spreads like feeling into numb limbs, and rain, the smell of burnt sugar, soaks the rough remnants of asphalt in the lane. All I want to do is love without impediments, to live, not survive, brazenly out of focus, enough for a horizon line to thread off in the distance while we learn to walk more gingerly, watching for rivulets of ants, the squat, thick-petaled prairie crocus. I call my dad, share details, his weight, his name, how powerful his mother is, the minimum to convey amidst dogged relinquishments, the gravity of such an appearance, how much it means we get to change. Yeah, so I've actually never read a lot of those parts to a group of people before. Yeah, strange. So thanks for listening. This is a poem called Reservoir. Carp lurk through suburbs when runoff jumps the dam, sucks manhole covers up like corks, slops wallpaper with septic hands. I mostly keep my body close, rove but rarely quit its cul-de-sacs, save in, say, a dense flicking stand of thin birches, their tigered stalks quivered by the spring wind, cool light trickling through the tossing stems. Then, if lifted, if moved, to swim among the future sprigs, bald now in burgundy armored buds like tiny minarets, I see it all without me. Abandoned nests, old anthill pox, and am reminded that the verb to be gears down but never loses speed completely. I am not undying, nor ever pre-bloom, just a reservoir of energies that pour in, spool around me, stream in floods of words that, like fish scales on furniture, cling for a while and shine, the dull way dried tears shine. Actually, I'm going to tell you a story about this poem afterward, but this poem is called Infinities. At this sharp crook in Beaver Point Road, a cumulus of blackberries frizzes with ripe fruit, veined leaves. Cars slip past like swallows in the throat, while 3 wild horses tug drooplets off their spiny boughs, their wire-twisting plier lips tenderly efficient. On this crisp July evening, they're completely ignoring me. Looking down, I suddenly notice the grasses teeming with baby toads. I got to read this poem yesterday to Sonnet Labé's intermediate poetry class at VIU here in Nanaimo. And I had to read it in a mask, right? Because we're in the classroom. And I finished reading the poem, The Grass is Teeming with Baby Toads. And it was really quiet. And then one of the students was like, "Did you say baby toes?" And I threw me off for the rest of the afternoon. I also got during question time, I learned that this exact crossroads on Salt Spring Island, where this poem is set, it has shares some property with someone who knows Steven Spielberg. So it is worth it to read to some workshops, some wild information. I always dedicate this poem to KIRBY. And the reason is that when I was going to put out this chapbook with Knife Fork Book, it was going to be called Desire Path. And then at the same time, a book called Desire Path was published on the West Coast. And so kind of scrambling for titles, I was like, maybe we should call it Tenderness, which is funny because KLARA and Dale, you both, I think, have the word tenderness in your readings tonight. So I was astonished by that kind of, that moment. And KIRBY were like, no, I think it should be called Their Queer Tenderness, and kind of shifted my sense of how I appear in the world really abruptly and for a moment in a really terrifying fashion. And I could not be more grateful for that push. So thanks. And this is for you, as always, as ever. Desire Path. Whereas the city's gravel trail snakes from side to side, nooked with oversized benches that stick layered stain on spectral swastikas and heart-trapped names. This path cuts straight through the wiry grass. Yet, as is often the case with desire, it swerved suddenly and got shy. Standing now in the stand of ruddy, felt-tipped branches, parsing scrub as it wildly parts and reparts its hair, I think how, to get here, someone had to veer off, followed by many others, and then all had to turn back, unless a few met face to face, and this became a meeting place. And I think I'd like to end, do a kind of abrupt little swerve. I'm gonna end with a poem called The Infinite Replies. And it's after a poem by Charles Simic called The Infinite, in which the speaker asks, "Does it find us good to eat?" The Infinite replies, "You dog at a mirror, how do you glimpse yourself only when you move? Air is fertile, all perfumed motes, pollen, mold. Do you really feel desperate? Or did a subwoofer just bloom over there? Savory nausea, furred everything. The difference between me and you? Me." Thanks so much for coming to listen. I'm so honored to see your faces here. So, and to hear you.
Thank you so much, Neil. Take it in.
I am.
Sweetness itself. Clara, thank you. Dale, everyone who joined us tonight, thank you so much. I left the links up. There'll be links at our website as well to purchase the books, either at Knife Workbook or at the publishers. And Neil, I'm seeing you Friday night.
It's true.
In Vancouver, so we'll have a chance to be together live, which I'm so looking forward to. Anyway, my loves, thanks for joining us tonight, and by all means, pick up the books, and because I know you're going to enjoy them. My love, we'll speak to each other soon. Okay, take good care. Take good care.
Thanks for coming.
Have a good night.